everyone, welcome to episode 5 of Sketch Support. I've got a new free one-page sketch that you can download at scrapbookgeneration.com. I'll link to it down below in the video description. And while you're looking for that link, don't forget to go ahead and hit subscribe as well. This month I have created 5 layouts, all based on that same sketch. And I've got to tell you, this sketch was a lot of fun to work with. One of my favorite things about using sketches is that they help eliminate that struggle of designing a layout and give you more opportunity to play. And I feel like I really got to play a lot with this sketch. There are so many fun details with this one. So I'm continuing the Sketch Support Challenge and giveaway again. The details for that are at the end of this video and also in the video description down below. Basically what it is each month I invite you to create a layout based on this same sketch, and then doing so gives you the chance to win $20 to spend on sketches, ebooks, or classes at scrapbookgeneration.com. I always love getting to see what you guys create with these sketches. So I say we go ahead and get started. There's stars, lemons, flowers, superheroes, and splashes, all coming from the same starting point. Let's begin with a look at the sketch that I used for all the layouts in this video. The sketch for this month is a one-page sketch that has 2 3x4-inch photos arranged within a large block with the journaling and title. That block of elements in the middle is surrounded by this border of stars all the way around it, creating this eye-catching, full of detail frame around all the important pieces of your layout. I really enjoyed playing around with that frame of stars on each layout because you can easily adapt and change the stars to fit any theme you are working with. There are so many possibilities here. You can also simplify it if it's a little too much detail for you. A few ways you could do that would be to use a single layer of a shape in the same size. You could also add a large single layer background paper that covers roughly the same area as the star frame does. Or another option is to use horizontal or vertical strips that cover close to the same area. As I go through my layouts, I'll share a few little tips and tricks that I use in regards to how I create that frame of shapes. The first layout follows the sketch very closely with just a few minor adjustments to adapt mostly my photos. I rotated the sketch so that the photos and background are horizontal instead of vertical like they are on the sketch. I did this for a very simple reason. The photos I wanted to use were horizontal, so a quick rotation of the sketch and now it works with horizontal photos. This is always an easy solution for using a sketch and swapping out vertical photos with horizontal photos or vice versa. Rotating a sketch is also a good idea if you want to get multiple uses and looks out of one sketch. The next change didn't end up being a big adjustment. It actually didn't cause any need for adjustments anywhere else on the layout, but I still want to point it out because this is a good solution for a problem you might run into with using smaller photos than what you see on a sketch. The photos I had were 3.5 by 2.5, which is slightly smaller than the 3x4-inch photos on the sketch. I could have scaled everything in this middle area down to fit that size, but a super quick and easy solution is to add a photo mat to each photo. So I added a 3x4-inch mat to those photos, and now my smaller photos fit the sketch design exactly as it is. Anytime your photos are smaller than what you see on the sketch and you just don't feel like figuring out measurements to scale things down to fit, the most simple solution there is to add a mat to fit the size of the photo you see on the sketch. Another small change I made to the sketch was swapping out that banner strip that overlaps into the star frame for this plain strip that doesn't overlap into that area. Instead, it fits with the edges of the photos and this rectangle piece. If I had been thinking ahead, I wouldn't have put as many stars where that banner strip overlaps onto the stars so that you could see all of that banner strip. I got a little ahead of myself with the stars and went a little too star heavy in those areas, so that banner strip was just getting lost in it all. Using a strip like this works just fine, so I didn't have to make any big adjustments or anything. While we are on the subject of the stars, when using this sketch, or really any design that has a lot of shapes clustered together, I have a method that I follow for creating layers of shapes like this. I will start with my largest pieces first. You can see on my layout that I have a larger star every inch or two. That largest size created a base for me to build on. Then I added in a few medium stars to fill in the gaps between the largest stars. Then I start adding some smaller stars. For these, I might tuck a few behind some of the larger stars, or I might use them with foam adhesive and further fill any gaps between large and medium stars. The last I add in are these teeny tiny little stars, filling in little open spaces throughout the design. I feel like starting with the largest size of shape first and then working my way down helps to keep balance as I arrange everything. I also like to use a variety of textures, designs, and dimensional pieces throughout the design. I added hand stitching to add some texture to a few stars. Hand stitching is always my go-to texture addition to a layout. I used several different designs of stars to help the individual stars stand out instead of it looking like a big pointed blob of stars. I have regular stars, I have star frames, and then I have the hand-drawn star design. For the dimension, I used foam adhesive to adhere some of the smaller stars around the whole design. As someone who loves all things lemon, I really had a lot of fun creating this layout. The downfall was that I was craving lemon cake and lemon bars and all the delicious lemon flavored treats the whole time I was making this layout. So I knew right away with this sketch that I wanted to use these pictures of Drew's lemonade stand. I had bought this cute lemon slice cut file for my silhouette and I was dying to use it on something. The border of shapes on this sketch was exactly what I was looking for. To create this frame of shapes, I used a combination of several types of lemons. The first are lemons that I cut with my silhouette. They have a cardstock rind, a pattern paper inside, and then a white cardstock overlay. I used several different yellow pattern papers for the inside piece so that I had a variety of patterns throughout this yellow design. I thought that maybe that would help each lemon stand out, especially since everything is yellow. The second type of lemons are full lemons that I cut out of a pattern paper. I have a few peeking out here and there throughout the design. The third lemons are the small little lemon slices that I punched out of another pattern paper. The die cut lemons were kind of bulky for something that is going to be tucked behind this middle piece. Instead of actually placing them behind those things, I cut them to fit as a border. The edges of the lemons are right on the edge of that red background piece. It creates the illusion that those lemons go behind the middle piece, and this way everything stays nice and flat on the page without weird lumps behind the photo and background pieces. To add a lot of little details and help highlight some of the lemons, I added hand stitching, glitter, and then some Nuvo droplets. I actually have a video about Nuvo drops that shows how to make these little droplets. I'll link to it down below in the video description. They're really easy to make and so cute. When it comes to photos, I made a few changes to fit the photos I had on hand. The first is that I used a 6x4" photo in place of the two 3x4" photos. This might be the easiest of all photo substitutions there is. The 6x4" photo is the same size as the combined measurements of the two 3x4" photos, so I didn't have to adjust anything. I also added a few smaller photos. I had a few photos that I wanted to include that helped tell the story of Drew and his lemonade stand. They are close-up shots of the lemonade, the cupcakes, and then Drew's cute little face. I always recommend taking pictures of all the details to help tell your story. I love adding little detail photos that support the theme or story. I wanted the photos to be small accents to the design, so I used a circle punch to punch them into a circle so I could arrange them into the design with the lemons. A quick little tip on using punches for photos: if you turn the punch upside down, you can see exactly what you are punching out, so you're not somewhat blindly guessing where to punch your photo. I used foam adhesive to adhere the circle photos and then added a small word sticker in bright red to help them stand out. I also have them arranged to create that design triangle that helps frame the layout. I think it's fun to add in some smaller shaped photos to a design when you can. It's a fun way to highlight or include a few small detail photos while still following that shape cluster or design. Mine is mimicking the same shape as the lemons and the design of my shape frame. I ended up swapping out the banner strip for an actual banner. The colors of the banner almost perfectly matched the banner we made for Drew's lemonade stand, so I knew I wanted to find a way to work it into the layout. It was a really good fit where that strip was, so I didn't have to make any adjustments to accommodate it. I also liked that it added some more colors to the layout. For the rectangle piece, I used a 6x4" card instead of cutting a piece like you see on the sketch. I love using cards when I can because they are so easy. There's no cutting, so they are ready to go, and they always have such cute designs on them. I used a card that had a little design in the bottom right corner, so I worked it into the design of my title. I also added a few little lemons and more of the Nuvo droplets. For my journaling, I used strips instead of the journaling block that you see on the sketch. I wrapped the strips around the design of the title and the design on the card. That's what I love about using journaling strips. They are perfect for wrapping around the elements on your layout, so you can easily custom fit them to what you are working with. These pictures are probably the pictures that have been sitting on my workspace ready to go for the longest time. They are some of my favorite pictures of my son Jackson. He's so sweet and he's always been my flower guy, and these photos show that. They're not even the greatest quality of photos, but I love them so much. I've had them here forever waiting for the perfect opportunity, and I'm so happy that they went so well with this sketch. I knew long ago that when I printed these photos that I wanted to surround them in flowers, so this sketch was perfect. I was working with 3 4x4 photos, so I decided to use the 3 photos side by side across the layout and extend the design to the left and right edges. I want to point out that if you had 3 4x4 photos, another option would be to arrange them in a square with a 4th 4x4 block for your title and journaling. Then you could still add the shapes all the way around the block like you see on the sketch. I didn't go with that option because I knew I wanted to create these big layered flowers, and I was afraid I just wasn't going to have the room I needed to make that work. If I used smaller flowers, it would totally work, but I was wanting to go big here. The reason I pointed this out is that rarely is there ever just one option for the photos you want to use. I'm sure I could come up with many different ways to use this sketch with 3 4x4 photos. It's just about making them work for the vision you have and where you want to go with the sketch. I used a much smaller piece in place of the rectangle piece on the sketch that has that title and journaling. Like I mentioned a minute ago, I knew I wanted these big layered flowers, so I was trying to make a little bit more room for that. I still had plenty of room with the smaller strip for my title and my journaling. My title is overlapped slightly onto the flowers, and then my journaling is slightly overlapped on the bottom of the photos. I also added 2 black and white stripe strips. I love pairing black and white stripes with floral designs. If you come to my house, you would definitely see that. I even have black and white striped walls. For the shapes design, I created several different styles and sizes of layered flowers to arrange along the top and bottom of the photos and strips. Since I extended the photos to the left and right edges, I only have flowers along the top and bottom and then eliminated the shapes on the sides. For some of the flowers, I did the same as I did with the lemons. I cut them instead of tucking them behind the strips and photos. This kept those photos and strips flat on the page while still having the appearance that those flowers are tucked behind those pieces. For the smaller layered flowers, some of them slightly overlap onto the stripe strip. To add some detail to my flowers, I added some hand stitching, some Nuvo drops. I've got some vine die cuts here and there, and then these wooden hearts. For the stitching, I created a circle design in the center of 2 of the flowers, and then I have a few stitched swirls coming off of the flowers. For this layout, I used a different shape in place of the stars and also a different shape for that middle piece. I had this picture of Jackson and I dressed up as Batman and Robin, and I knew right away that I wanted to kind of involve the background piece into the shape design by creating a sunburst design with the superhero comic words at the ends of the sunburst. You can create a sunburst out of any shape, and I thought a circle would be a really good fit for the design I had in mind. When it comes to that background piece, you can really play around with different shapes. You can use things like star, a heart, hexagon, diamond, triangle, or a scallop circle would all work really well and give the sketch design a completely different look. To have some fun with this superhero theme, I used my silhouette to cut out all of the words and little background pieces. This might be one of my now all-time favorite cut files ever. Those little words and backgrounds turned out so cute, and I was almost like giggling every time I got one put together. They were so stinking cute. I'm going to have to find more excuses to use them. I absolutely love them. I adhered them all around the circle sunburst design. Some of the words and the little exploding designs have been adhered with foam adhesive. I like having different layers of dimension to really help the design stand out. I added a little bit of glitter to a few of the yellow pieces for some texture, and glitter is always great for helping things stand out. I also added in some circles with stars in the middle that were punched from a pattern paper. I have a few of them tucked in behind a few pieces here and there, and then I have a few tiny little stars throughout the design. I only had one photo, which I thought would work well with the circle background. I like the look of one photo arranged with the title and journaling in the center of this background piece. It felt like a really good solution for using this sketch with just one small photo. You could do the same with the rectangle background or a square background. Eliminate the strips and the smaller rectangle piece, and then arrange your photos, title, and journaling together in the center, like on this layout. To fit the comic book look of the layout, I added a black border with a pen on my journaling strips. It seemed kind of like a fitting look to match the theme. The last change I made with this layout was adding a black cardstock background to the whole layout. I hadn't originally planned to do this, but when the layout was finished, I felt like it just needed something, and I liked the framing that it added to the colorful and bold design of the layout. It is officially the time of year where I can't resist making water-themed layouts. Water layouts are always one of my favorites to scrapbook. I love coming up with different ways to use waves and splashes and water droplets. I always use the last layout of Sketch Support to show that the size of the sketch doesn't have to determine the size of your layout. You can always use a one-page sketch to create a two-page layout. If you look at the far right photos, you can see the main pieces of the sketch. There are two photos, the rectangle piece with the journaling block and title, then there is the fun shape border. All I did to turn this into a two-page layout was to add more photos and extend the design to fit across 2 pages. Aside from that big change, I stayed pretty close to the sketch. I had this set of 10 3x3 photos and decided that they would be a perfect fit for a 2-page version of this sketch. All I had to do was scale down the size of this rectangle piece to fit. The great thing about this design and sketch is that if I had less photos than what you see on my layout, I would have just made my rectangle piece 3 inches longer for each photo less that I had. There are always ways to adjust and adapt to fit your needs. I generally have two methods I use for creating a 2-page layout from a 1-page sketch. The first is to extend the design, which is what I did and have already talked about with this layout. You can see that I extended the design by adding more photos. So to extend, you are adding more pieces to continue the design. The second method is to stretch the design. If I had wanted to stretch the design, I would imagine taking hold of the design, so like this section here, and pulling it to stretch across the layout. What that layout design would look like with stretching is these photos along the top and then this one long strip along the bottom. To stretch, you are pulling the whole design across the layout. Both methods work really well with this sketch, so I wanted to point that out. As you can tell, my silhouette really got a workout with my sketch support layouts this time. I used my favorite wave cut file to create a border around the photos. There are 4 different layers of waves. 1 that is hand stitched and 3 that are made out of pattern papers. I did something different to each pattern paper layer to help it stand out from the others since they are layered on top of each other. The first layer I added was the largest of the pattern paper waves. They are all the same size and cut out of the same pattern paper. And then to help this wave stand out, I added a hand-stitched border to the edge of it all the way around. Next, I added the second pattern paper layer. They are all slightly smaller than the first layer, and I used a mix of 2 different pattern papers and then alternated them around the design. To help this wave stand out, I sanded the edges with a nail file to expose that little bit of the white core of the paper. That's a good way to define the edges of pattern papers. The third pattern paper layer is out of this dark blue, and it's the smallest layer of the waves. I used a white gel pen to add a border around each one. Then the last wave border I added is the stitch border that is on the cardstock base. I used one of the wave die cuts as a template to trace the design in different places along the whole border. And then I pierced my holes and stitched the design. If you can't tell with the set of layouts in this video, I love adding hand stitching to my layouts. If you ever want to try stitching but don't know where to start, I have a video tutorial that could be helpful. I'll link to it down below. To accent the waves, I added some die cut droplets and some Nuvo droplets. I used my favorite go-to Nuvo jewel drops in Sea Breeze because they look exactly like water drops. And then I also used Dream Drops in Cloud9 and Crystal Drops in Calming Aqua. Those are my go-to water layout Nuvo drops. Well, that brings us to the end of Sketch Support, Episode 5, and to the Sketch Support Challenge information. The challenge is to use the free sketch I have used in this video as inspiration to create your own layout. There will be a Sketch Support Challenge post on my Facebook page that will be pinned at the top of the page, and I'll link to that below so that you can find it. After you create your layout, you'll go to that post and in the comments, post a picture of your layout. The fun part for me is that I get to admire all of your layouts. I have had so much fun seeing what you guys have created in previous challenges. The fun part for you is that I will randomly select one person to receive $20 in downloadable sketches. I'll let you choose which ones you want. That way you can mix and match and pick out whichever ones you want in case you already have some. You can also pick out classes or ebooks. I'll leave that option completely up to you. You'll have a month to complete a layout and post it on the Sketch Support Challenge post on Facebook. Then on July 27th, I'll announce the winner. So go grab the sketch from scrapbookgeneration.com and get to creating. I look forward to seeing what you guys create with this sketch. I really had a lot of fun with this one, and I think you will too. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.